Hello everyone, I am Dr. R. Brinda Shree, Assistant Professor of Commerce, Sri Shada College for Women, Autonomous, Salem 16. In this video, we are going to discuss about the topic kinds of shares in the subject company law. Before entering into the main topic, we have to know what is company law. For that, we divide the term into two. One is company, another one is law. The rules and regulations which are governed by the government or higher authorities to safeguard the people from various exploitation is termed as law. Another term, company. Company is an organization which are formed by the people with the object of earning profit. So we heard about business conducted in several forms such as sole proprietor, partnership firm and joint stock company. If a single person started a business, it is called sole proprietorship. If group of persons join together and form the organization with limited capital and the scale of business also is very limited, then it is called partnership firm. But in case of company, it is a huge undertaking by several persons whose liability is limited to extent of the face value of the shares held by them. So far, we followed the Companies Act 1956. Due to upgrades in technology and various changes, the Companies Act also went into various amendments. Now we are following the Companies Act 2013. The term company is derived from the Latin word companis. Com means together and panis means bread. It refers that an association of persons who took the bread together is called companies. Later, it is converted into company. That means an association of persons formed for a common purpose and registered under the Indian Companies Act 1956. Now the Indian Companies Act 2013. The common purpose is usually an profit. In sole proprietorship or partnership, the capital of the firm is called as the owner's capital or partner's capital. But here, the capital of the company is called share capital. So better we can know what is share. The capital of the company is divided into different units with some definite value. That is called a share. In short, share is the share capital of the company. The share capital means the company's capital is divided into smaller units like 10 rupees, 100 rupees, 20 rupees, 150 rupees, like that. That single denomination of the share capital is called as share. According to Section 246 of the Indian Companies Act 1956, share is the share in the share capital of the company and includes stock, except when distinction between stock and share is expressed or implied. Here we have to know what is stock because it is implied or expressed. Share includes stock. A share has a nominal value, that is face value. I already told you, no, that is 10 rupees, 100 rupees. The price fixed by the company for each share is called a nominal face value. But stock does not have a face value. Shares are directly issued to the people to subscribe capital. Only shares which are issued can be converted into stock. Always fully paid up shares can be converted into stock. Shares can be transferred in round numbers, but stock may be transferred even in small fractions. All the shares must have equal denomination. The shares are converted into stock, no? So there may be unequal amounts in stock. For each and every share, there may be a distinctive number, but stock does not bear any distinctive numbers. Shares are always registered with the name of the shareholder, but stock may or may not be registered. So this is the basic difference between shares and stock. But in common, share is a thing which is contributed by the shareholder in account of capital to the company. But stock is not the direct contribution by the shareholder. It's just a mere combination of various stocks. Next, let us see the features of shares. Share capital of a company, which is divided into your share as the face value. The face value is also termed as nominal value. The person who held the share, that is, who's contributed to the capital of the company, is called a shareholder. Really, equity shareholders are called the real owners of the company. They have the right to share the profit of the company. Then, they have to bear the liability at the time of winding up. In case if there is any problem or loss to the company, the shareholders has to bear that loss. But the loss is limited to the capital of the person. That is, if a person buys 10 shares of rupees, 10 rupees. So the total value contributed is 100 rupees. So the liability is also limited to 100. He is not asked to pay more than that of the amount contributed by him. So the features of a company or features of a share is called limited liability. In company, there are two main documents. One is memorandum of association, another one is articles of association. Memorandum of association consists of main classes. That is, it comprises all the things which has to be followed by the company. It includes capital, liability, object, name, registered place, etc. Another document which is legally compulsory for the companies is Articles of Association, briefly called as Articles. It contains the rules and regulations which are formed for the internal management of the company. So, it governs the share and share issues. Share is a movable property which can be transferred from one person to another. So, like negotiable instruments, we are passing checks from one person to another person. No, likewise, shares also transferred from one person to another person. So, these are the features of share. Next one, kinds of shares. That is, types or classification of shares. Shares are broadly classified into three types. One is equity shares, second one is preference shares, and third one is deferred shares. Equity shares are called ordinary shares because these are shares without any preferential rights, right? Preference shares. It means these shares carry no special rights in respect of annual dividend and return of capital at the time of winding of the company. So, these shares will enjoy capital dividend only if the company makes adequate profits. They don't have fixed rate of dividend. If the company earns more profit, they will get more dividend. In case the company suffers loss, they don't get any dividend at all. So the equity shareholders are termed as the real owners of the company since they are bearing the loss and also enjoys profit. That way it is given that the board only recommended the rate on the basis of profits earned by the company. So the time of winding up or liquidation, the equity shareholder will be paid only if they have any surplus after payment to all the creditors including preferential shareholders. Second category is preference shares. Preference shares are those shares which enjoy certain preferential rights. That's why it is termed as preference. The name itself indicates they all have some preferential rights. Then the other shareholders like equity shares or deferred shares, they have enormous rights. Let us see what are the rights they have. They have the right in respect of dividend at the fixed rate. In case of equity shareholders, they don't have any fixed rate of dividend, isn't it? Only if the company earns profit, they will enjoy profit as a dividend. Otherwise, they have to forgo the dividend. But here, in case of preferential rights, the preference shareholders enjoys the dividend at a fixed rate. The next thing is payment of capital. Preferential rights of shareholders enrich them to get the payment of capital in case of winding up or liquidation of a company. So these two rights indicated them as a preference shareholders. These preference shares are further classified into various types, namely cumulative preference shares, non-cumulative preference shares, participating preference shares, non-participating preference shares, convertible preference shares, not convertible or non-convertible preference shares, redeemable preference shares and irredeemable preference shares. Let us see one by one in detail. First one is cumulative preference shares. They have a fixed rate of dividend. So, in case if the company is not able to pay the dividend during that particular year, then that dividend is treated as arrear. That is, it will be given at the upcoming years. So, the arrear amount will be cumulated, add on to the upcoming years. That type of preference shares are termed as cumulative preference shares. So it is clear that unpaid dividend on such shares is accumulated till it is fully paid up to the shareholders. Next one is non-cumulative preference shares. The name itself indicates it is just opposite to the cumulative preference shares because it is given as non-cumulative. So here the arrear of dividends, the past year's dividends cannot be accumulated. So the shareholders have to get the dividend at the current years. If they didn't able to get the dividend at the current years, then they cannot get the dividend in the upcoming years. This type of preference shares are called as non-cumulative preference shares. So from this it is clear these type of shareholders do not carry any right to receive arrears of dividend. Next one is participating preference shares. So they have the participation in excess profits of the company. In case if the company enjoys abundant profit or earn more profit in a particular year, then this type of shareholder get additional dividend from the surplus profit of the company. That's why it is termed as participating preference shares. Next one, non-participating preference shares. So like non-cumulative, here also non-participating. The shareholders which have no right to participate in the surplus or excess profit of the company are termed as non-participating preference shares. Next one is convertible preference shares. So these shares can be converted into some other forms, isn't it? So convertible. So at the option of the shareholders, the preference shares can be converted into equity shares after a specific period of time, like after 5 years, after 10 years, after 15 years. So there may be some fixed period of time. After that, the preference shares holders, if they are willing to convert, they can convert the shares into equity shareholders. So preference shareholders are having a preferential rights, but equity shareholders having a voting rights. If the shareholder wishes to contribute to the decisions to the management, then he can add to the convertible preference shares. So for the first 5 years or 10 years, he may be a preference shareholder and enjoy the preferential rights of getting a dividend and some other benefits like winding up of the company. He can get the capital amount. If he thinks that the capital of the company is going to be rise in the future, the company aims to higher their returns, then he may choose the convertible preference shares. Next one, non-convertible preference shares. So the shares which cannot be converted into equity shares are called non-convertible preference shares. So this type of shareholders are always the preference shareholders. They do not given any option to convert the shares into equity. The next one is redeemable preference shares. Redeem means get back. The company will get back these shares. So the preference shareholders which are having an option to redeem after a certain period of time is called redeemable preference shares. Redemption is the process of repaying a capital to the shareholder based on predetermined terms and conditions. At present, a preference shares issued by any company is required to be redeemable within a maximum period of 10 years from the date of issue. For example, if the preference shares issued in the year 2001 can be redeemed after 10 years, that is at the time of 2011, it can be redeemed. So at the time of redemption, the company will repay the share capital amount to the shareholder. This type of shares are called redeemable preference shares. The last category of preference shares is Irredeemable preference shares. The preference shares which cannot be redeemed are called irredeemable preference shares. They are always a preference shares and cannot be get back by the company and repaid by the company during its lifetime. Only they can get the amount at the winding up or liquidation of the company. This type of shares are called irredeemable or non-redeemable preference shares. So these are the various classifications of preference shares. So far we discussed the types of shares, that is equity share capital, preference share capital. Let us see the advantages of equity and preference shares. So in equity shares they have a voting right, but in preference shares they do not have any voting right. In case of equity shares, they don't have fixed returns. If they have only a surplus profits, but preference shareholders enjoys fixed return on capital called dividend. They are very flexible in capital structure, but equity shares are not flexible. It can contribute a finance to the company without any burden. But in case of preference shares, the dividend should be paid yearly or based on terms and conditions, so it is a burden to the company. Preference shareholders enjoys preferential rights like payment of dividend and repayment of capital in case of winding up, but the equity shareholders enjoys the charge on assets in case if the shareholders are not paid their amount, they can charge on the assets. In case of debentures, they don't have, they also have the charge on assets. So equity shareholders or have a charge on assets and they are wide on the capital. So in both the cases, the company faces some merits and demerits. In case of equity share also, they have to face some demerits and also they can enjoy some benefits. The same way for preference shares also, there are some merits and demerits. So usually the companies issue both type of shares, that is equity and preference, in some proportion based on the some other tools such as reputation, goodwill, returns, the partner's profile, the assets they have, the liabilities they have to pay. So, considering all these factors, they are issuing some quantity of equity shares and some quantity of preference shares, and they have the equal balance structure of capital in case of equity and preference. Thus, this type of equity and preference shares contribute the share capital of the company. It can be said as authorized capital, issued capital, subscribed capital, called up capital, and paid up capital. Usually, these two types of shares are issued by the company in names such as first shares, second shares, ordinary shares, and so on. In that, the next category deferred shares. It is not the main classification of shares. It is a classification from the equity share. So the broad classification is two types. One is equity and preference. In preference, we are various classifications like redeemable, irredeemable, convertible, non-convertible. Likewise, we have 8 categories. This type of deferred share is also called as ordinary equity shares, but it is slightly different from ordinary equity shares. Let us see what is the difference. Okay, so these shares which are issued to the people other than cash or in kind is called deferred shares. This type of shares is also called as sweat equity shares or founders shares. Sweat equity means we are giving a share to the people who are sweating, that is who are having a hard work or who are giving some suggestions or who are providing their valuable time in the promotion of the company. For them, we are giving a shares without getting any cash. This type of shares is called deferred equity shares. So this Type of shares also have a features like ordinary equity shares. They also have a voting rights. They do not have any preferential rights in case of dividend return of capital. So just these shares are issued to the founders of the company like promoters, technical advisors, legal advisors. So the broad classification is two types, equity and preference. In equity, we have some other type that is called sweat equity shares. So we discussed various types of shares in this video. The references taken from Company Law, authored by N.D. Kapoor, Principles of Company Law by M.C. Shukla, Company Law by P. Sarvanaved, and Textbook of Company Law by B.S. Kongna. I hope this video will be very useful to know the concept of shares and various classification of shares. Thank you for watching. Thank you.